All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, who is in Greece. We are recording Tuesday afternoon. We're going to talk about Eagles Saints, Bears Colts, and then Thursday Night Football, Patriots Jets. Drew, let's start off straight away with Eagles Saints. Saints 2.5-point favorites. Total is 49.5. This opened Eagles minus 3.5, I think, and then has flipped 6 points. It was a very suspect opener and has corrected some. AJ Brown expected to be out. Eagles on a short week. Do you have any bet in this game?
So fascinating market. The 3.5 opener was really more of like a preseason look ahead. When the Saints were expected to be a team that was, I don't know, vying for mediocrity. And now through 2 weeks, a team that looks like they are destined to destroy all comers, and now has just kind of unbridled support in the market, which to me seems a little suspect. Like the prior on this Saints team meant nothing. And so I think we have to break this one down a little bit. The Eagles' loss on Monday Night Football was, I don't want to call it fluky, but it felt a little unrepeatable, particularly at the end, the end of the game. And maybe the major takeaway was just what is going on with Nick Sirianni and his decision making. But ultimately, that I still don't know that I would put the Eagles in sort of league average kind of rating at all. And I certainly don't know that a line that's approaching 3 now for the whole the Saints as a home team reflects the idea that the Saints are meaningfully better than the Eagles. This seems like an overreaction to me, and I think the only meaningful kind of piece that I can kind of use to justify anything here is that the AJ Brown injury really means this much. They are thin at wide receiver. The Saints do have excellent coverage, but boy, oh boy, is it tough for me to downgrade the Eagles offense to the tune of the Saints being meaningfully better. And so I guess ultimately here I am buying back on an Eagles team that I have no confidence in and no interest in betting. But this is a wild overreaction. Eagles were, they were unimpressive through 2 weeks. They probably should have lost both. They should have lost week 1. They should have won week 2. They're 1-1 either way. And I look at the defense as not especially solved. I look at the play calling as still a little bit broken. But the Saints, to me, are, they were beneficiaries of playing the completely unprepared Panthers week 1, and then Cowboys team week 2, who as we talked about yesterday, is boom or bust, is amazing with the lead and terrible from a deficit, and they got a lead against them. And so ultimately I don't know that this degree of upgrading for the Saints is warranted. They are a good team. None of what we've seen so far is fake. The offensive line in particular, which was expected, it could be a bottom 5 unit in the NFL, is clearly cohesive. Everybody is playing well, and they're well coached. Clint Kubiak is coordinating phenomenally well. And all these things are true, yet upgrading the Saints to being, approaching a 3-point favorite to me is really, really tough to get to. So I'm going to monitor this one very closely. If and when it touches 3 at a viable price, I think that's my entry point. Saints could win this game. They could win by more than 3. But team rating wise, and considering the way that I would treat a prior 2 weeks, with two weeks of data in the books, I can't get here.
Okay. Where would you rank the Saints offense in the hierarchy of the league right now?
Top half, surely. They have unique weapons. They are a lot more, kind of doing things in the current way that succeeds in the NFL, which is utilizing space, utilizing play action, and just in general, just an intelligent, well-prepared, and well-schemed offense. And so, if they're kind of fringe top 10, I think that's reasonable. But Derek Carr is still prone to be a guy that, you can point to on any given day and say he's, at best league average. And so it's tough for me to say that they qualify as top 10 with just these 2 weeks of data where, number 1, they got to play the Panthers, and number 2, they got to play with the lead against the Cowboys.
Okay. And if AJ Brown were playing in this game and the rest was equal because the Saints have an extra day. Do you think this would be closer to pick?
Yes, I absolutely do. And honestly, it'd probably be Eagles' small favorite. The preseason look ahead was, as you mentioned, Eagles -3.5. That was a little rich. You want to upgrade the Saints, you want to bring it inside 3. That's fine. You want to cross pick them. That's where I sort of, kind of start to draw the line if the Eagles were fully healthy. AJ Brown to me is absolutely a difference maker. He is to a degree a security blanket for Jalen Hurts in the passing game, especially. But now that they have kind of gotten to see what this offense looks like without him, I will be very disappointed in the Eagles in terms of offensive game planning if they don't have a few more things figured out in terms of making up for his absence.
Yep, I think that's fair. And the last one for you is, where would you rank the Eagles' defense in the hierarchy? Given that they just gave up 0.23 EPA per play to Kirk Cousins, which is like, I think that would have ranked, like, off the top of my head, like third in the NFL last year among quarterbacks. And then also the Falcons had positive EPA running the ball. And seemingly kind of did whatever they wanted on the ground with Bijan Robinson running rampant. So how good is this Eagles defense?
Well, they're clearly bottom half, but I'm not going to put them in the bottom 5. I think they kind of fall right in sort of the 22 to 28 range. And I think the major takeaways we've gotten so far from the data just really from what we've seen, the pass rush was ineffective on the road, or really not on the road, but ineffective on the neutral site in Sao Paulo. And I threw that out entirely because that field was very slick and very difficult to get your pass rush going. When the field conditions are like that, just go ask the 2022 Eagles who played the Super Bowl in Glendale and couldn't get a pass rush against Pat Mahomes. And so I kind of assumed that we would see something better against a statue of a quarterback in Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football at home with that environment, with the kind of knowledge that you weren't going to get a ton of mobility and evasiveness out of Cousins. And the pass rush was meh, and that is concerning. I think that was sort of the silver lining of this defense, if there was any, and now you have to question that. So I think ultimately, if this is a defense that we regard as a bad defense over the first half of the season, we shouldn't be shocked. But it still does have, I think, a lot of room to grow under Fangio over the balance of this season. The key kind of question for this game, I think, really just boils down to how many points are realistically coming from both sides, as I think maybe even more than Eagles at +3. I think this total should probably start with a 5.
Yep. I think the reason the market is where it is that Saints have a better defense than the Eagles. I think that is pretty broadly accepted. And without AJ Brown, I think these offenses are in a similar ballpark, and the Saints have a rest advantage and they're playing at home. So we'll see. There might be some smoke and mirrors stuff to the things that Clint Kubiak is doing, given that I think they had 3 pure pass dropbacks total against the Cowboys. Everything else was a run, play action pass, or a screen. I'm not sure how sustainable that is with this personnel, but we will see. Certainly the Saints came into the season as the most nondescript team in the league. Now they are fairly descript and fun. So we'll see if it extends for a third week. All right. The defending Super Bowl champions are back in prime time this weekend. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs hit the road for a battle with the Falcons in Atlanta. Coverage of the matchup begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. Market buying into the Falcons and Kirk Cousins a little bit. The line going from 5.5 down to 3.5 after what Kirk Cousins, who seemed to have the first ever, his Achilles repaired itself during Monday Night Football, it felt like, from based on what he was in the fourth quarter compared to the third and first. But we'll talk about that game at some point later in the week. Bears-Colts, weird game. Colts -1 at home. Total is 43. Do you have any bet in this game?
Yeah, this one has really, really surprised me. The Colts opened up at more meaningful favorites than this, and it's been one-way action Bears. I did not see that coming. I am really struggling right now to rate the Bears and just in general kind of square the fact that the defense is, it is more like the unit and the data that we got from them at the end of last season. Coming into the season, I had, I think I had market low, or I mean, I was very much lower than market on the Bears defense. And my explanation for that would have been the Bears played a lot of quarterbacks who weren't very good at the end of the year. And their rush defense was very solid, but I think their pass defense might have benefited just from who they played. The Bears defense was excellent against CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. They ultimately just played with a lot more energy and a lot more, just like they belonged. And I think that is probably what has got market excited about this team in general. That and the fact that you're going to have a little bit more likelihood that the Bears can get a balanced attack going, considering the Colts' run defense is super, super poor. And so there may be some buying on the Bears here on the basis of, no, we were too quick to dismiss this defense and how strong it is, particularly the pass defense. And this is an opportunity for the Bears offense overall to get their legs under them if they can kind of lean into a rushing attack. If the Bears aren't starting their preparation with, here's how we're attacking the run game, X, Y, and Z, then they're making a huge mistake. And I think, as much of a question as I have about the way Eberflus is running this team and his fingerprints on the offense, as much as I still am waiting for anything positive for Shane Waldron to do as a, kind of an offensive mind. It would be surprising if they aren't scripting something that is relatively run heavy to help take a little bit of the pressure off Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, to me, the discourse around it feels very, very premature. I don't think there's anything that I've seen to this point that doesn't just kind of check a box of, this is a young player who has made 2 career starts in the NFL. One of them was in prime time on the road against a team that's going deep into the playoffs, in my opinion. So I think ultimately this is, maybe a little bit more of a true litmus test for the young man. And maybe that's why the Bears are getting so much support. I still rate the Colts enough to think that this should be closer to 3. And as we approach the weekend and we get a little bit more information on the, health of a lot of the Colts defensive players, I think I'm probably going to be into here.
Yeah. So non-Bryce Young division, the worst quarterback in the NFL by EPA per play through 2 weeks is Caleb Williams. So I know you mentioned that, there's not too much to read into, like no one's giving up on Caleb Williams after 2 weeks. But do you think that he is at the point, like he has a worse EPA than Bo Nix, Deshaun Watson, and Will Levis, every other quarterback in the league outside of Bryce Young? Is he at the point where he is just going to torpedo the offense until, or at least that should be the expectation until he shows more?
I think my general read is there will be a conservative evolution. And then basically the next step of the Bears offense is going to be, we need to simplify this thing for him a little bit. What I have seen so far from Caleb Williams is a guy that is playing like he played in college 2 years ago. And I think if you are making a true bear case for him as a prospect, it is based on the fact that he had a little bit of an arrested development year. And when your development stops for a full year and you kind of settle into your worst tendencies and you don't ever continue to evolve as a player, that can be bad. A lot of examples of this, particularly of players who in their previous to coming to the NFL season looked like no doubt prospects, and then kind of dried a little bit on the vine before they got to the NFL. And again, like I'm not a Shane Waldron guy, so I'm a hair worried that this could be an arrested development situation for Caleb Williams, and we don't ever really get to see his full potential. But I would expect that, this particular matchup, kind of leans the Bears down the road of, let's make this more of a 50-50, type of pass run split. If anything, our passing over expectation, I would expect to be negative here for the Bears. And I would just in general think that, less of an emphasis on, hey, man, you need to go out and be a superhero like you were at USC should be helpful. And, I think I would really, really like to see both of these quarterbacks have phenomenal Sundays. I think as an NFL fan, more even than an NFL better, We need these guys to grow and learn and not be given up on in the manner that some other young quarterbacks just were. And so I really, really hope that these guys play well. And I think in general, both of these offenses kind of leaning into a rushing attack makes sense to me. I really don't think Anthony Richardson should be out there slinging it against this Bears pass defense, particularly with Jalen Johnson being able to effectively wipe out half of the field. I think in general, this sets up well for an under 42.5, as this could get real short in terms of how the rushing approach really shortens the game. I know getting involved with the Colts under 42.5 also is suicide, because Shane Steichen runs such a fast offense. But the Bears taking the year out of the ball feels realistic for me here. And I think we need to probably kind of reframe our expectations for Caleb Williams this season, considering how much growth he needs to show. I think the offensive rookie of the year market is finally catching up to, our expectation from 2 months ago. So this is going to be a much longer period to, I think, undo some of the damage that was done in his senior year, in his last year at USC.
Yeah. In theory, always been against Caleb Williams in that market, but I didn't think he was going to look this bad. So maybe it will correct a little bit. Last one for you before we move off this game. Exactly how bad is the Colts defense in terms of where you would rank them? Because right now they are the 27th ranked defense, and 50% of that sample is going up against Malik Willis.
Yeah, I mean, were they going up against Malik Willis, or was it Josh Jacobs? Because
Malik Willis was sneakily good when he dropped back.
I understand he was sneakily good, but like he really just didn't have to do much. They were so successful on the ground in that game that there was no pressure. And I think in general, the Colts defense is bottom 5, period. They do have a feisty pass rush. But that's only useful if you have a lead. So I think the fact that they cannot get off the field when teams are running against them is a huge problem. There is a concept that I like to think of when it comes to rush defense that the Chargers kind of proved out in the late stages of the Brandon Staley era, where they effectively there is a Mendoza line that exists for your rush defense, where if it is so poor that you can't even get off the field in neutral situations, you are in deep trouble. And through 2 games, Joe Mixon and Josh Jacobs made it look very easy, and that is a huge problem. The linebacking core for this Colts defense is way bigger red flag than I realized. Just in general, the health and availability of DeVorest Buckner is a way bigger problem than the market has recognized. And we knew the coverage was suspect. And they've lost Juju Brents, who was not great. And so I kind of shrugged about that when we saw the news. It's like, oh, okay, well, you can find a replacement level player for a replacement level player. That's fine. But the fact that the run defense is this questionable is really, really shocking. And the fact that they made no efforts to try to fortify the safety position for this defense, when there were a lot of very good safeties available in the market, not just at the start of free agency, but at the middle of training camp, was a little bit of a head scratcher. And, I have always been trying to read between the lines here of, do they feel like the development curve for Anthony Richardson is much, kind of longer arc than we realize, and for those reasons they're not ready to push their chips in the table with him yet, the way that we've seen other teams with quarterbacks on rookie contracts. So the Colts and their decision making, the way they've rostered this team, a lot of it is still really tough for me to wrap my head around. But ultimately, this particular matchup is a coaching mismatch. Shane Steichen should be able to find a way to get this done at home and prevent the 0-3 start for this Colts team.
Yeah, I mean, on the defense, it's a bit of a red flag if your defense is falling apart with the absence of Juju Brents, as though he's like Cliff Averill coming out of the game in the Super Bowl for the Seahawks against the Patriots. So not looking great for the Colts defense. All right, dominate this NFL season with a Fantasy Life Plus subscription. Get weekly rankings, start sit advice, DFS analysis, and betting tools. Use promo code season20 for 20% off. Go to fantasylife.com/rotoworld to learn more.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's close out with Thursday Night Football. Jets are 6.5-point favorites home to the Patriots. Total apt for Thursday Night Football. The total is 7.5, very Thursday type of total. Where I want to start with this one is I'll throw my hypothesis to you, Drew, which is that by the end of the season, the Jets offense will rank higher than the Jets defense. What do you think of that?
I will fully support you on that. I think that is very reasonable. This Jets defense, we maybe need to wait, just like maybe put a note in the calendar to talk about this again once we have about 6 weeks of 6 games worth of data. But the end of the season for the Jets, the defense really was not covering themselves in glory. As you remember, because it costs some of the people on this podcast a lot of money, the Jets laid down against Joe Flacco at the end of the year. And I just kind of assumed, well, what do they have to play for? But I think the weight and the effort that they poured into trying to keep this team afloat while the offense was truly non-functional has borne its toll. It looks like the spine of this defense is just old and washed, and it is very concerning. And you combine that with the lack of a pass rush and just in general, you're hanging your hat on now 2 or 3 young guys who are outstanding, who can do amazing things on the football field, but what about everybody else out there? And defense is a weak link system, and all of a sudden you look around and there's a bunch of weak links. This is a real questionable situation for the Jets long term this season, as they were expected to kind of take some of the pressure off the defense with the offense just being able to sustain drives. But honestly, I'm definitely recalibrating my ratings for a lot of the units on the Jets defense as we are watching these games. And I'm doing my absolute best not to get over my skis here and be too quick to react. But it is a real concern. And that win against the Titans should have been much more straightforward. The loss on Monday Night Football against the Niners, I wanted to kind of chalk it up to you're on the road in a terrible spot against the best offense in the NFL. There were some serious problems with their ability just to do basic things to keep the that game within reach, to allow the offense comeback opportunities, and they just couldn't do it. And it's there are a lot of red flags. That said, I don't think we see any this week.
Yeah, perhaps not. On the flip side, though, the Patriots, their offense has a higher ranking than their defense through 2 weeks. Do you think there is maybe some untapped competence in the Patriots offense, or is that just because they went up against the Bengals defense, which had a really good showing against Kansas City randomly, and then a Seattle defense that is perhaps still finding its footing a little bit? Do you think that's just smoke and mirrors?
I think it's smoke and mirrors and a little bit of the element of surprise. I don't think people really knew what they were getting. And some of the sort of low expectations that were sown by a completely inept preseason. I think kind of carried into the way defense is prepared for these guys through 2 weeks, and now it's over. Now they get the real test against against a team that can cover extremely well, and is going to force the Patriots to continue their success on the ground with an offensive line that is suspect. And I think the kind of key angle that I really would, look to, kind of tack into here is Gerard Mayo is a rookie head coach, and he is now preparing for a divisional opponent who understands his roster and his team's strengths and weaknesses very well and has lots of experience preparing for short weeks, and he does not. And I think in general, if the Patriots come out and look like the worst version of the Patriots that you could have imagined when the season started, we should not be surprised. And then the flip side of the coin is you have a very experienced quarterback in Aaron Rodgers who, was presumably preparing to a degree last week for this week's matchup. And it should be a lot more fluid and a lot more, opportunity for the Jets here to put kind of hey, we're here, we're part of the discussion kind of type of win in prime time against the Patriots team that is not going to be a factor when the dust settles. Patriots, caught the Bengals by surprise week 1 when the Bengals were dealing with lots of things, and then in week 2, I think got off to a really nice start at home, put the Seahawks in a little bit of a difficult game state, and pulled off another miraculous win. But I do think that there are fundamental issues with the way this Patriots team is rostered. I think there are massive questions and issues with the way that they pass protect. And if the Jets can get off to a solid start here and put a 2-score lead on the Patriots at any time before we get to the third quarter, this game is over. And I'm a little bit surprised that the market has not gotten back to 7. In the preseason, we expected this line to be in the 7.5 range. I was licking my chops, hoping against hope that the Patriots would start warm enough to move this across a touchdown, and it has. And I think the Jets 6.5 is probably one of the better bets on the board as we speak.
Yep. So right now the Jets, the look ahead lines at least project them to be favored in each of the next 10 games that they play. And there's a chance they could extend to 13, depending on they're at Miami in week 14. Like, we'll see what the Tua situation is by then. Right now, they're projected to be a dog there, which they probably would be if Tua is going to play. But if he's not, then the Jets would be favorite. And we'll see, they're projected to be favorite home against Buffalo in week 6. I don't think that's a lock, depending on how Buffalo continue to look. But is there any appetite for you getting involved with the Jets at 10-1 AFC, 18-1 Super Bowl, plus 180 division, or staying away?
I kind of want to take a bigger swing than that. Aaron Rodgers MVP.
Yeah, I was looking at that. The issue is he can't move anymore, Drew.
His game the movement was always a little bit of, cherry on top. I guess I was very quietly bullish enough on the Jets in the preseason that I was kind of entertaining the idea of, oh my gosh, if this defense can just take a step back in terms of how much they have to work and how often they're on the field, and be at their peak in the months of December and January as we get into playoff football. Like, people just aren't going to be able to price them right against the elite quarterbacks that they're going to run into in the playoffs, and they have a realistic chance to get it done. But my coolness on the Jets defense through 2 weeks has me really just no interest at all in getting playoff prices, playoff successful prices in my book. But again, to your point, I could see the Jets as a top 10 offense. The offensive line looks like they have some things figured out. The chemistry between Rodgers and Wilson is real. The Breece Hall and Brandon Allen, that's kind of a nice little 2-headed monster that you can kind of lean into to put games away if you have a lead. And I don't know if they're going to try to be a little bit active in the trade market to add a little bit more talent in the wide receiver room, or if they're just going to hope that Mike Williams comes back and can be a little bit of a factor to help open things up. But I can see a world where Rodgers is 10-2, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's back to the MVP level," right? Like there's definitely the enough of an anchoring and a pedigree and people wanting to write that story and have that be sort of the narrative of this season. And he's playing in New York and he's playing for the Jets. And if the Jets are winning because their quarterback is playing mistake-free football, then his MVP narrative writes itself.
Yeah. I think the concern with Rodgers is that it'd be a lot more bullish if his defense looked better. And right now it just doesn't really look like that much of a strength. And then the other thing too is that I think with Rodgers, there are some house of cards aspects where, like, the thing with him being a little statuesque at the moment, and like he can't move, and his arm strength is there, and the arm angles kind of compensate for not being able to move. But like, what happens if Tyron Smith goes down for a month, like he goes down for every season, and all of a sudden, like, what happens if Garrett Wilson misses a half of a game? Like, I think if you could guarantee me health for Tyron Smith and Garrett Wilson, then I'd feel a lot better. I agree. Like, I think the top of the MVP market is a lot more fragile than the odds indicate, where Mahomes was terrible on Sunday and Hollywood Brown's not coming back and the left tackle situation is a mess. Josh Allen has no elite receiver and plays a hard game like every week of the season the rest of the way. CJ Stroud has this massive discrepancy between the eye test, where he looks like Jesus, and then the underlying. Why is CJ Stroud like always 15th in EPS? That's type of range. The offense just
throws the ball away a lot.
Yeah, and he's gotten extremely lucky with interceptions.
Big, very much so. Yeah.
So, look, I think those three guys should be they're the three most likely guys to win. And then I think there's a drop down. Like I think Aaron Rodgers is more likely than Jalen Hurts to win MVP.
Right now,
double his price. So I think there's a little bit of meat on the bone with Rodgers. I just worry that it is a little house of cards, and it's not just that he needs to play better; it's that he can't have injuries to key guys, because I think it falls apart in a way that it doesn't fall apart for Mahomes, Allen, Stroud, to a lesser extent, even like Purdy and Burrow. Like if they lose a key offensive lineman, they can still move like around. They can kind of adjust for it. Whereas I'm not sure Aaron Rodgers can. But maybe he'll miraculously get healthier the way that Kirk Cousins did in the space of one Monday Night Football game.
I guess let me put a finer point on it. The Aaron Rodgers MVP case is he gets the 1 seed in a weaker than people thought AFC, and he has 4 interceptions.
Yeah, well, he's already got 1 is the problem, but
he can only have 3 more.
He'll have, like Rodgers is like the MVP cheat code, the antithesis to Josh Allen, because Rodgers always has the crisp touchdown to interception ratio, which I would argue is a flaw. I
would too.
Yeah, I mean, he should be chucking it up more the way that Mahomes chucks it up down the sideline on 3rd and 12 to try and create something, whereas Rodgers throws it away because he wants to keep his pristine statistical record, in my opinion. But yeah, no, I'm not opposed to it at price at all. All right, we are done for now. Don't forget to check out NBCsports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you soon.